Welcome. I'm James Jeffrey, the genealogy librarian here at the Denver Public Library, and I wanted to share a couple things with you today. Have you been thinking about doing a DNA study? DNA has certainly been in the news lately, especially with the case of capturing the Golden State Killer. And many people are asking, is my DNA safe? So we're going to touch on a few of these things today and how it relates to you and your genealogy. First of all, you need to decide what sort of a DNA test you want to take. Keep in mind there are 4 types of DNA. You have your gender. So men have a Y, women have X. Well, men have a Y and an X, but it's the Y that makes us male. Women have 2 X's, so there are tests for that. We also have what's called mitochondrial DNA, and men and women both inherit mitochondrial DNA directly from their mother. And that is unchanged for generations, for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. Now, there may also be a need for your YDNA if you're male, and that you inherit obviously from your father, he from his father, and it goes back to the primordial ooze. So we can track who our mothers or fathers were for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. It's quite exciting living in this day and age of science, technology, and traditional genealogy. Well, there's also something called autosomal DNA. And when people first started testing for DNA, they didn't know what to do with autosomal DNA because it was just noise. They didn't think it would ever have any practical application. And autosomal DNA is what the majority of people are involved with today. It is the test most frequently taken by genealogists. It's called the cousin finder or the family finder. It is that inherited DNA, not only from your mother and your father, from your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great, so that you will receive 50% of your autosomal DNA from your mother and from your father. You will then get 25% of your DNA from each one of your grandparents. Okay, so do the math. So if you get 25% from your grandparents, from their parents, you theoretically are getting half of that. So about 12.5%. Well, let's go back another generation. That would be 6.25%. Then 3 1/8, I think. So you get the idea. Well, your children, the fruit of your loins, do they have all of you? No. They have theoretically 50% of you, 50% of, in my case, my children's mother. And so my children are received half of their DNA from me. If you look at my children, they couldn't deny that I'm their father. I mean, it's my face. If I have grandchildren, heaven forbid, then someday those children would have 25% of my DNA, theoretically. So the application for you is that will help you find cousins. That will help you determine the relationship of people taking DNA tests. So let's talk about the different types of tests that you could take. So obviously you would be interested, if you're male, in a YDNA test. It is one of the most expensive. And it runs many degrees from 12 to 25 to 36 markers, all the way up to 111 markers. In genealogy, the 67 marker test is the golden standard, and that is enough to help you determine your relationship between you and your 12th cousin, depending on how many times removed it may be, so that you can fairly well determine that if you're related to someone within the last several hundred years, and that you share a common ancestor. But you can also tell if you share a common ancestor with someone and the common ancestors from 1,000 years ago. So that's the value of a test like that. Well, where would you get a test like that? Well, the National Geographic offers such a test. Family Tree DNA, My Heritage. There are a few labs that will offer gender-specific DNA test. There are labs such as 23andMe that will give you medical history. There are all the labs such as Ancestry will do the cousin finder or the family finder, testing for the autosomal. And again, as I mentioned, it is the most popular and common in the genealogy community right now. So, which lab would you want to decide upon? Well, it all depends on what you're looking for. Are you interested in a gender-specific test? Then that would limit you to something such as Family Tree DNA. But if you're interested in an autosomal test, it's wide open. But I want to remind you that buyer beware, because you will find many DNA tests available for as low as $29 these days. Does that mean that you're going to get a full study and report back? No, sometimes there will be additional lab fees on top of that. They're just sending you the kit. And so you have an activation fee. So what you want to do is to look at a reputable, established company such as Ancestry DNA, Family Tree DNA, 23andMe, My Heritage, to be able to have such a proven lab to get the bang, most for your buck, the bang for your buck. Well, which lab is the best for you? Well, you have to decide that. You can read reviews, come sit with me at the library, pick up the phone, call, text or email me, and I will guide you through all of that. But I just want to give you a little bit of a background so that you have almost a working knowledge of what you need to decide before you order a test. Well, the one thing that nobody tells you, and I'm here to tell you today, is that not all tests are equal. Some tests you spit in a tube and you mail it back into the lab. Some tests you scrape cells off the inside of your jaw and send that in. If you are young and productive with your spittle, then maybe you'll be comfortable spitting in a tube. Bubbles in your spit do not count. I'm not here to make you laugh. I'm just giving you the directions. So that you have to be able to produce enough spit for them to test. When I had my in-laws tested, and they're in their 80s, I used a company that you scrape the inside of your mouth because that was most comfortable for them. I could not see an 84-year-old gentleman spitting in a tube when he can barely spit in the morning. So think about who you're having tested and what you're testing for. Read the fine print. See how you, first of all, come up with a sample to be able to mail in. Well, the next thing is, what about your privacy? Well, your DNA is quite exciting because it is your roadmap. It is your genetic roadmap. And it has implications not only for you, but for your entire extended family. Your DNA is something that's going to be able to help you track relatives. And so you want to remember, are you creating a family tree to go along with this, or are you only interested in seeing if you're Scottish or Irish or German or Lebanese? You have to decide what and why you're testing for. Are you testing to be able to find relatives? Are you have a lot of choice in how we approach our DNA? Are we going to allow the lab to share our DNA with scientists working on projects? Are we going to share our DNA with the world so that cousins can find us? Or are we going to lock it down? Are we going to upload it to third-party companies such as GEDmatch so that we can maximize our reach into the genealogy community? These are things to think about. Keep in mind that when you go outside of the lab that you have contracted with, that you lose some control over your DNA, which is your personal identity. So keep that in mind. That is, after all, how the Golden State Killer was tracked down, using a third-party lab known as, or match service, known as GEDmatch, which is open sourced and does not make the promise that they won't share your DNA results with the world. So keep that in mind. I am excited to be able to have found relatives throughout the world. I'm excited to be able to have touched base with relatives that I previously did not know that I had. I was able to work through and discover who my grandfather's father truly was. So for me, it's been quite exciting and something that I think everyone in the genealogy community should participate in. After all, the more test results we have in, the wider the umbrella and reach in which we'll be able to discover even more relatives. I hope that you have found this of interest and that it will pique your curiosity and that you'll engage in a DNA study yourself. Thank you.